It's the biggest game of the season. Spurs have lost twice on the spin at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against the old enemy, and Arsenal are the only team who seem to be able to get even close to Man City at the top of the Premier League table. So surely this Sunday will be another routine win for that lot down the road, right? Well, wrong, if you ask me anyway, because I think this will be Big Angie's statement win as Spurs manager, and I think we're going to blow them away. But maybe I'm going mad. So I've invited my regular tactical genius guest, Jorri, back onto the show to perhaps bring a bit of perspective. How are you, Jorri, mate?
I'm good. I'm pretty good.
Good
Uh,
man. Let...
feeling a bit stressed for the game as usual, but also feeling pretty not confident, but I definitely think we should get it over the line.
Okay, well, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So I just want to start by asking where you think the game on Sunday will be won and lost.
It's the good old midfield. I think that's going to be the big battleground. I think there will be balls played over midfield into the wingers and stuff like that. I do think they're going to set up with their kind of most pacey setup. But I think whoever controls the midfield is going to come out on top, really. So,
And by pacey setup, I assume you're meaning Martinelli left forward and Saka on the right, yeah?
yeah, probably. Yeah. Martinelli hasn't been starting that much, but I think this is probably one where they would set up with that. But yeah.
I made a note of some of the big kind of what I think of as the key matchups, Jory. So let me know what you think out of these, where it'll be really, where Spurs can really get in the ascendancy, I guess. So I think their best player, especially seeing as Declan Rice is out suspended and looks very much like Erdegaard will be out as well. I think their best player is William Saliba for sure. So that kind of battle between Saliba and Gabriel against what I hope will be Solanke. But if not Solanke, then I guess Sonny. And then if Sonny does play on the left, Son versus Ben White, Romero and Van de Ven versus Havertz, or maybe Gabriel Jesus. And then, like you said, Martinelli against Porro and Saka against Udogi. So you think those kind of forwards versus our fullbacks situation might be a big part of it?
For sure, absolutely. And I think definitely if Solanke's in, it's a big boost for us. If not, I'm kind of hoping actually to have Kulo in the central forward line
Okay.
there and keep Sonny out there because I also think we are gonna have to do quite a bit of shooting from outside the box, and then my hope is Sonny does it brilliantly on the left there. So my hope is we can create some space for him there. But whether it's Sonny or Kulu, we will be weakened if we don't have Solanke in the central forward
Sure.
area. Yeah.
And let's play worst case scenario for a second there. If Solanke is out, or maybe let's say he's only fit enough to make the bench, what is it
Mhm.
about Kulusevski playing in that force nine role that you like? Is it about his ability to kind of occupy the centre halves and use that kind of low centre of gravity of his and his kind of strength holding off players to try
Exactly.
and hold the
That's
ball up?
that's that's it exactly, Barnaby. It's like if you kind of think the battle for Sonny with these two really strong center backs. I think Kulusevski is gonna. He is more physical. He's gonna have a better go at it. I also think, to be honest, I think. Kulusevski's ball retention in really tight spaces is probably a little bit better than Sonny, to be honest. Sonny has many world-class qualities.
Mm,
This one is not really his strongest. It's not bad either. He does have games where he's actually really brilliant in tight spaces, but overall, I think if Kulu, even if Kulu loses the ball in these tight spaces, he will create enough disruption that somebody else can get a chance in or whatever. So whereas Sonny is a little bit more passive in that way.
mm.
So yeah,
And
yeah.
if Decky was going to start in that force nine, and Ange really has liked to do that, certainly in preseason, he actually said after preseason, didn't he, that he didn't expect to do that again. And then straight away against Newcastle, wasn't it, when Solanke was out, he
Mm.
did start there. But
Yeah.
if Kulusevski was to start there, would you then be picking from Brennan Johnson and Wilson Odobert on the right, and where would you go?
I would go with Wilson to start, and I think we all have kind of seen that at least in this at this moment in time, Brennan is amazing coming off the bench and not very amazing starting. Hopefully that will change, but um, Wilson for me showed a lot of the like Wilson created more space as a wing for other players as a
Yeah,
winger than any other winger really has done in a long time, I think. So and that's what we're gonna need with this. Like I'm pretty sure that if they're not gonna be low block, they're gonna be a tight mid block at the very least, you know. So space creation is gonna be a key element in our forward play. So yeah.
absolutely. I want to ask you a question because I've been meaning to ask you the last few times I've spoken to you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, it's a bit of off on a tangent, but a lot of people talk about how, Arsenal obviously play with the four centre backs, and even Pep has been more pragmatic in his use of the inverted fullbacks and how far forward they get, and how Big
Mm-hmm.
Ange, kind of basically says to Udogi and Pedro Porro, no, you both get forward at the same time. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, is there, do you think, potentially an element of Big Ange looking at Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie in terms of their skill set and their abilities, and actually saying, there's kind of no point, for example, there's no point me saying to Pedro Porro, you play, as a normal right back and Udogie go forward, because actually Pedro Porro's skill set isn't really suited to that. His skill set and Udogie's skill set, sorry, is so much more suited to being that inverted forward fullback that actually
Mm-hmm.
that kind of forces his hand a little bit. Do you think there's an element of that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does. It does kind of put a kind of a confines a certain format that you always need to adhere to. Then, but to be honest, I think I mean I want to present my own suggestion to Ants, and I'm kind of hoping and kind of deluding myself that that's maybe what I'm seeing him doing here at the start of the season, which is that when we set up when we're going forward and on the ball, and this was some of what I saw with fixing the midfield.
Mhm.
We had two guys sitting a lot of the time. They're fairly forward still, but they are enough that they can recover. What I'm hoping and think maybe, because sometimes it was even Madison and stuff like that. So I think the fullbacks and the midfielders are kind of rotating that responsibility, you know. So if they see, oh, Kulu and Madison are forward now, I'll tuck in a little bit with Bizuma now and so on. And that's kind of also very much how Ans presents his philosophy, is kind of like, you guys need to figure it out. You need to be watching what the other guys are doing and covering for that and so on. And to me, that would be kind of the optimal, kind of the optimal way of getting a little bit more defensive security,
Mhm.
while still being pretty full on with the whole overload, or just basically just shooting and million chances kind of
Yeah.
setup, so that's what I would do. I would definitely, and I was actually thinking quite a bit about it, who would be the best in if we're playing with only that one designated sitting guy, who would be the best for covering. And I don't think there's an obvious candidate, because you lose so much going forward if you just say, okay, it's going to be you, Adogi, you need to stay a little bit, or
Yeah.
you need to watch that or whatever. So when things are happening on the right, it's going to be one on the left that's doing it, and vice versa. Now that's kind of what I think I've been seeing, and that's what I hope the tactics are, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, great. And you said at the beginning of this episode you thought the key to the game will be in the midfield. I think the
Mm.
midfield is likely to be Jorginho, Partey, and possibly Havertz up
Yeah.
against, I think, Bentancur, Sarr, realistically, and Madison.
Mhm.
I have to say, on paper, I know Jorginho hasn't played much this season at all. Partey has played a bit in the last kind of 6 months, but certainly hasn't been a first name on the team sheet for Arsenal for quite a while. And then
No.
Havertz has mostly been playing as a false nine. But then also, I
Mhm.
think kind of obviously Bentancur looked okay when he started against Leicester and then hasn't been in the team since. And then Pape Matar, I think, although these games, in my opinion, do suit him because we need the engine and the legs,
Mhm.
he hasn't really set the world alight this season either. So where where do you foresee somebody in those two teams in the midfield taking the game by the scruff of the neck? I'm kind of hoping, could this be James Maddison's time?
Yeah, I mean, I think Madison has gotten off to a pretty good start, to be honest. It's an overall.
Yeah.
He definitely has more to give, but I'm not unhappy with how he started this season. But I would also say, Barnaby, I can also see the midfield being Bentancur and Kulusevski. I can also see Kulusevski being in the midfield, both for their long history together, to playing together, and also for that physicality, because even though Sar is a amazing running engine and all of that, and we're definitely going to need that as well. If he can lose, like especially to Partey. I don't like he's going to be the toughest. Bentancur can stand up to Partey,
Mm.
but and so can Kulusevski. Sar not quite
Wouldn't
as much, I think.
Jory, sorry to interrupt. Wouldn't that be seen like in at a time where Big Ange Postecoglou seems to be getting or any stick that he's getting, any abuse he's getting from the Spurs fan base now seems to be almost because he's being too stubbornly attacking. If he were to pick Kulusevski with Madison in the North London derby and it went wrong, isn't that that would be a huge risk for him to take, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but isn't that exactly what Ants likes to do? It's kind of like, I'll show you, motherfuckers. I can
Yeah.
do this. So, and to be honest, it's a risk if you're playing them as just the two eights, forward lying eights, or tens, or whatever you want to call it, the very
Mm.
attacking midfielders. But if you're playing Kulu in a hybrid role, as also covering the sitting part in some sense, and then going forward. And Madison has been dropping as well, even when we're on the ball, sometimes Madison is lying a little bit deeper than than we're used to seeing him. So I don't think it's likely, Barnaby, but I'm just saying I could see, and then he would go with Johnson on the wing instead, so I could see something like that, but I wouldn't be absolutely surprised. And like I say, these kind of moments is usually when or are often when Ants likes to make a statement or about himself and what he's about and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised. And to be honest, if we're seeing that we're coming up against that low block again, yeah, I mean that's what's been giving us successes when those two
Yeah.
guys are both creating. So yeah.
Yeah. Look, I completely agree. I don't know. I can imagine almost like an intake of breath at the stadium if they see that team kind of read out an hour before kickoff. I just wanted to ask, obviously, we've mentioned the forward line, we mentioned the pace that you expect Arteta to use up front. We mentioned the midfield. Arteta does like to tinker his tactics a lot more than Postecoglou seems to for whichever team he's playing. And
Mhm.
I think we've kind of alluded to this before. We felt like really they hit Spurs with kind of sucker punches a bit more last season, especially at our
Mhm.
place when we really had the better of them in the first 20 minutes, and then they scored from a corner, and then the breakaway from Saka. What
Mhm.
do you think? What kind of thing, just based on what I've seen from Arteta over the years and on the documentary, what do you think possibly he might bring that's new to this game to try and outthink Ange Postecoglou? Can you think of anything in particular other than it being just like a narrow, like you said, mid block?
Yeah, I mean, that might be, they might come out starting without the low block. That's one thing I could see, maybe, that they would actually be very front-footed in the first minutes, simply to try and get that first goal in, and then sit.
Mm,
But I to be honest, especially now with and one thing is Odegaard, which is a huge miss, but I don't think Arteta has the balls to play too front-footed without Rice now. But I mean, yeah, and it's not that I don't know. Maybe you disagree, but I don't feel Arteta is nearly as innovative as for example Pep or something like
Yeah.
that. But he tweaks, and and those tweaks are based on who is facing, and so I guess the answer to your question would be, okay, so what is he facing from us? He's going to face a pretty relentless forward line and a high midfield. So you might see, for example, you could see where he would keep his forward, two of his forward players right on the shoulder or something like that to simply be able to do like a two-touch transition and get in behind, but and that's, I mean, they kind of do that anyway, but we might see it, that would be the aggressive version, I would think, of what I'm expecting for Arteta is if he was to keep them pretty up there instead of coming back and helping, so but I don't, to be honest, I don't think he has the bravery or kind of the tools right now to go too far away from what he's usually doing, so.
I mentioned in my video this morning that I think one of the things Tottenham have to be wary of is almost like an element of complacency because of the suspensions and the injuries to Erdegaard, like a feeling of, oh, this is our big chance. But I also want to ask you, how huge a miss do you think Erdegaard is? Because for me, I think in terms of, I'll tell you what I'm thinking about is times where perhaps we're in their final third making chances and then they get a little break on. The player they want in that first ball out is to Erdegaard, right? To then be able to play the quick creative balls through the lines or over the top. Surely they're going to miss him hugely for that.
For sure, but now the player we're gonna have to keep extra watch on is Havertz. He's gonna be performing that role. I think that So if they're just playing the normal system, I think you'll exactly see what we're used to seeing. But now it's Havertz getting the ball, and he's gonna be going to Saka probably or
So
something
how
like that.
early do you think Romero will get a reducer in on Kai Havertz then on Sunday? I reckon at about 2:01 p.m.
Yeah, I think so. And that I actually think that's the right way to go about it, because I do think you can really Havertz, you can actually bully, he will get shaken if
Yeah,
actually.
I
So
agree.
Erdogan is much more resilient than
I agree.
Havertz.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention one other Arsenal player as well, who I feel like is almost unfortunate at Arsenal. And Spurs were interested in when he went to Arsenal. I think Leandro Trossard. And if he doesn't start on Sunday with the injuries and the suspensions they've got, he must be looking at his future, because I know how great he is coming off the bench. He is brilliant. He always scores.
Yeah.
But he's short. I would be, if I was him, I would be absolutely gutted if I didn't start on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, what we heard about Brighton was that, there's quite the ego there as well, and so on. And Arteta, to his credit, has been pretty hard on that kind of stuff. So, and also, I think maybe I was thinking about Trossard as well, and I think maybe it's kind of a similar situation as we have with Johnson now,
Ben
that
Johnson,
he
yeah.
really feels like he's one of the best super subs in the league, and he wants to keep that, because that's, if you have a super sub like that from a managerial point of view, that's your trump that you play that's your get out of jail card,
Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have that card, you're starting him now. Well, then you don't have that the option to change. So I think maybe might be something to do with still this kind of ego/attitude things. It's probably minor, but it might have an influence. And then it's more to do with what Arteta needs as a manager than actually what Trossard deserves, because I agree he should have gotten his he should have really been a part of at least on rotation for starting the games, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about something I brought up in my video this morning. You're quite forthright with some of your fears about Ange Postecoglou and his stubbornness, and
Mm,
I brought up kind of Postecoglou's first season in terms of points in the Premier League compared to Arteta's, which was 66 compared to 56, so 10 points more. And obviously, Postecoglou had to
mm,
deal with losing Kane and trying to shift the whole squad around.
mm,
Obviously, Arteta did win the FA Cup. That is important to remember, and of course, gave him a lot of collateral. But
mm.
do you think, like, kind of, I guess this question is a bit two-pronged. Do you think that Postecoglou, firstly, will be given the amount of time needed the way that Arteta was? Because obviously Arteta came eighth and then fifth before kind of getting back into the top four. So we're talking about 3 seasons. Whereas I would say right now, going into the North London derby, it feels a little bit like, not that Ange is under pressure, and I certainly think, if you go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, they're all kind of behind Ange, but certainly online there is an element of people getting a little bit antsy, I'd say, about it. And so the second part of my question is, you know, how huge do you think this North London derby is specifically for Ange? So first question, do you think Ange will get the time that Arteta was given? And second one, how important do you think this game is for Ange Postecoglou?
I think first off, in regards to the time, nope, he won't get anywhere near that kind of time. And I don't think it's to do with us Tottenham fans being any different or worse than Arsenal fans. I think it's to do everything with the boardroom, and the Cronkies, they just got a change of heart all of a sudden, and they kind of committed and really, did the difficult work, and backed them and got a sporting director that recruited according to his philosophy and so on. So I don't think he will get anywhere near that, because also the other thing also is that now we're chasing the title contenders, and that's also something that's very merciless with this whole North London rivalry, is that you have all the silverware titles and whatever, but then you also have the balance between the two
Yeah.
clubs, and that can get too much out of whack before things go really badly. So I don't think he will get that time. Maybe the bigger question, Barnaby, is will he need that much time? And for me, I would say no, he will not need nearly as much time. If it's going to work, it's going to work. It's going to be clicking fully in this season, I think. It then becomes a question of just, next season, then we can start accumulating the points if we're going for a title challenge, or because already now I'm thinking like we have to develop too much in this season for us to be able to do that. I still think we can get a cup this season. I do think we should go all out in the Europa League.
Mhm.
Um, but in general, I think we will know. Even I think most of the pretty staunch Ants in crowd will know whether the whole ants system philosophy is viable in the Premier League.
Is
But
that, Joey,
what
just to
could
interrupt there?
also
Sorry, sorry.
happen, Barnaby, just to finish it,
Yeah,
what
sorry.
could happen and what I hope happening is happening already, is that he's now starting to adapt. He's now starting to move it around a little bit, and I'm because I probably was one of the first to kind of be pretty vocal about him being found out, and to
Mm.
be honest, that original system that he came in with, which we tore up the league the first 10 games, was found out and is found out. We cannot just rest on those laurels anymore. Now we need to tweak it and so on. And that's what I'm seeing. So I'm not nearly as worried now at the start of the season as I was at the end of the season, So
Okay.
yeah.
Is
So
there what I was going to interrupt with, sorry, Jory, is just is there an element where you could foresee the players kind of getting to a point where they're like, this isn't working? Kind of
for
almost
sure.
almost just as quickly as the fans.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to be honest, I think that's really the real genesis of all these managers out, is that the players just say, no, I'm not buying it, and I can't be bothered with all this hard training. Or in Mourinho's case, it was, I can't be bothered with all this responsibility and being a man. What's he on about? And so on. I think that was like Mourinho was too lax in terms of discipline, and Conte was too hard, and now we maybe have some kind of a hybrid in that regard. But I definitely think the good thing maybe now is that there's almost nobody in the club left that's used to doing this drill. It will be a first for our squad now if they kind of throw the manager under the bus like that. But I am pretty convinced that all of these, like the really catastrophic kind of last period, starts with the players really like backing off and not giving their all, and so on. Yeah. So
Okay, so I've got to
yeah, and I mean, and like as far as I've heard, our training program is one of the most ruthless around. So that's always precarious if you're not getting the results. The young guys are maybe not gonna feel motivated for this torture on the training pitch.
it's a bit harder to see Son Heung-min being the first one to tell the boys to
Yeah,
down tools.
that's just about the at least that would be the last guy I would vote on for
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, Joy, before we go, I've got to ask you then. I started being possibly far too brave about this, but you did say you think we might be able to get over the line. What's your prediction then for Sunday?
Bravery is a good thing, Barnaby. Keep it up. I think even I mean, you have to go against common sense and statistics anyway. So I'm gonna say I think we're gonna do something that nobody's done in a long time, and that's put 3 in the Arsenal goal. We of course won't keep a clean sheet, so
No.
they'll get the one, I think.
3-1 Tottenham Hotspur. I like the sound of that. And that sticks with the stats, which is the Arsenal Spurs games have averaged 3.32 goals a game. 68% of them have been both teams to score, with 37% of them being over 3.5 goals in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Jory, thank you so much for coming on. Guys at home, please do let us know in the comments what your predictions for the game will be. And also do press that subscribe button if you haven't already, and the like button, and you can become a member. Only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. But most importantly, good luck on Sunday afternoon. Also, I will be hosting the watch along on We Are Tottenham TV, so make sure you subscribe to them and come along. And hopefully I'll be talking to you, Jory, after the game, will I?
Yeah, I'll try and call in. Let's see if the family allows it, but I'll try. Yeah.
Top man. Okay, well, make sure you all tune into that, guys, and have a great weekend. Cheers.